So it exactly.
All right, folks, I think we're gonna get started. Thanks for joining. Recording is already in process. We could start and stop it, but it's fine, I think. Makes it a little easier later. We'll just jump in and go ahead. I'm gonna host today. Pasha was nice enough to switch with me as I'm gonna be traveling next week and likely unavailable. So thank you, Pasha, for helping me out. And oh, hang on. I'm not able to share my screen. Give me just a second. Hang on, I gotta quit and reopen. I'll be right back. Okay, sorry about that. That was fun. All right, let me share the screen. Okay, so last week we had Nitish and Ryan doing triage. Before we get to your issues, do we have a volunteer for primary this next week?
I can be a primary.
All right, Leo,
Hello.
sure.
Yep.
And we need a secondary.
I can go for secondary.
Nitish coming back again, 2 weeks in a row.
For two.
Buddy. 2 for 2. All right. We had pretty good activity this week. Shout out to Michael Crenshaw and Ishida, as well as Jag, who I don't remember seeing in previous ones. So thanks for bringing all these reviews. We appreciate it. And quite a bit of merge activity going on there, so that's great. Looks like we have 2 issues from issue triage. Nitish, is this one yours?
Yeah. So this issue has actually been raised in context of the one of the issues that I think brought up in the previous meeting. If you go through the motivations, so it was around that the user would want to see the pod IP address via the Argo CD CLI, and looking at the comments, so there is actually an API call that eventually supports that. And I think Alex mentioned that it would be good if we can wrap this functionality around the CLI. So this is so either we can have a flag, or maybe we can introduce a new command that is eventually calling that API. So this is generally the proposal of the new subcommand for Argo CD, which is like Argo CD app pods, that is generally going to provide the details of the pods that are generally running as a part of your application. So I have actually written the how the command syntax, example usage, flags, and output format is going to look like. So need a feedback on this, and probably we can continue that form.
I think what was discussed is to have a generic commands to retrieve a resource manifest and nothing specific to pods.
Yeah, that was my understanding of Alex's suggestion. So there are certain special resources where we retrieve certain special pieces of data, like images from deployments and rollouts, etc. I think that Alex's recommendation was that we add the ability to configure, like, I want to retrieve this JSON pointer for this resource type, and then store it somewhere that can be accessed more easily via the UI and CLI. So that wouldn't be specific to pods. It would be their user's responsibility to set up. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that versus this. Like there's value in providing specific user interfaces to specific, like extremely common resources. But then there's cost to it. So we got to decide, is it worth the cost of maintaining a pods command?
Yeah, I agree. I think it feels like if basically what I want here, it sounds like, is basically kubectl with an app filter. Like I want to be able to get a resource, any resource that belongs to an app. And I definitely don't want us to re-implement like all of kubectl to do it. Is it possible to just do this with like kubectl plugin, like an Argo CD plugin for kubectl?
Or using the new plugin functionality, that's also an option, right? If you would, Nitish.
I think that could be, yeah, that is actually possible. That.
Mm.
So I guess like stepping back, right? And forgive me for being philosophical, right? So like the idea behind Argo CD CLI is to not give end users kubectl access, right? Like be able to interface with Argo CD. So retrieving information that Argo CD would already display in the UI via CLI does have value. I
Yeah.
guess now now I'm thinking, but to your point, Dan, and I guess to to others' point, is like, do we want to re-implement kubectl functionality, right? Versus like, and then also the question is like, what information do we extract? Do we get like some of the information, all the information? Are we just grabbing the entire manifest, or only just relevant data from the manifest? And what is that relevant data? Like there's a lot of questions there for me.
I like the idea, and I think you hit the nail on the head that we don't want to have people require kubectl access to get this stuff. It's like if I can get it in the UI, I'd like to have a CLI way to interact with that resource and see. So like I could see someone having a CLI command that gives me pod logs, right? That would make sense, but then be able to like look at service manifest or look at like a diff on a specific resource, and to be able to select those with like a JSON or whatever feels pretty cool.
It doesn't feel
Yeah,
to me
what?
like this is a general requirement. I mean, maybe for one or two companies, this may make sense, but for Intuit, for example, it doesn't. So if you have actually here users have kubectl access and almost nobody has Argo CD CLI, or
Mm,
they do, but it's more for CI purposes. But kubectl is something available. The problem is if we go in that with that direction, then we need to bring all kubectl functionality inside Argo CD CLI. I'm not sure if that makes sense.
No, I don't think you want to replace kubectl. You want to be able to like get resources in a generic way that doesn't reinvent the wheel.
Hmm.
So just confirming, so what should be my next steps? So what should be my next step in order to add this functionality?
I think I'm hearing that people are supportive of adding this functionality in the Argo CD CLI, but that they would like this to be generic and not pod specific.
Yeah, like Alex G's suggestion here in the chat.
Got it. So instead of having the Argo CD app pods command, we can have Argo CD app get resources that's going to fetch the any specific resource we would want to. Is that correct?
Yeah, subject to, I guess, normal resource specific RBAC that is a feature that we have, right?
Yeah, I mean, basically everything that's in the resource tree, right? In the app's resource tree, that should be fetchable by the CLI.
Yeah, and we already
Okay.
have it available as a patch and delete, so why not get? Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, cool. All right, Nitish. So that's one. And then we also have this Helm values files wildcard in multi-source. Is this one yours as well?
Yep. So this I'm not sure if this issue was ever brought up, but so regarding this issue, it generally says that that there should be an option to inject the Helm values when you're using the by using the wildcard option in application or application set. So if right now, if you are using the values file, you will have to specify the path of each values YAML file. So what the proposal is about that we can probably use some sort of globing and or maybe like a wildcard pattern that's going to fetch all the YAML files. So just want to brought this up in the meeting and see what are the thoughts of the maintainers about it.
Hmm.
I have to drop in 3 minutes, but that's kind of dangerous because you need to guarantee the YAML files order for Elm, and just having a wildcard there, it could be dangerous.
What do you mean by like the Helm value files orders here? Like,
The order matters.
oh yeah, okay, got it. Okay.
So that's my concern. But I gotta drop. Have a good one.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so I guess there would need to be some kind of, I don't know, is that just something that we can document and say when you use a wildcard, it's ordered by alphabetically or something, but it does have to be a set thing so that it's not random, because otherwise it'll cause a lot of issues.
I think we already have wildcard support for non-external values files. So we would just want to mimic whatever that behavior is.
If would you mind sharing the link so that I can take a look? Let me-
Yep, I can try to find it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. All right. Well, that will be probably the best guidepost then. Any other issues for triage? If not, then we'll move into the discussion portion. I actually think both of these probably should have been a discussion. Issues are usually for like bug reported, less so for proposals, like feature proposals. but more like, hey, here's an issue that we're seeing that people are raising that's coming up. And then discussion is kind of the portion for proposals and those kinds of things. All right. Kanika, implementation detail for this. Is there any preference about finalizer placement? It can either be on the application set or controller applications. Both have their pros and cons.
I meant the controlled application, not controller applications. That was a typo on my end.
What was the deletion strategy for progressives? Yeah. Oh, so okay.
So I was going into the details about implementing the reverse order. So if we want to delete the applications in the reverse order than the specified when the progressive sync is enabled. So I've gone back and forth on the finalizer placement. So I just wanted to see if there's like any preference on where we want to have the finalizers. I have the implementation currently with like having a finalizer on application set. And my reasoning for that was basically that it's centralized logic. It's easier to clean up and enforce the deletion order because application set knows what are the applications. I mean, so yeah, it's like, I mean, like it would be easier to enforce the order deletion, but it would also necessitate foreground deletion. So like we want the applications to be deleted before the application set then, which is not what happens by default at the moment. If I understand it correctly, right now the application set gets deleted first, and then it relies on the owner reference for the applications to be deleted. Yeah, I just wanted to know if you have any thoughts about it.
So is it having? I don't actually quite fully understand the discussion point yet. So let's see if we get there. But
So
are you asking if the applications should have finalizers pointing to the application set or to the Argo CD controller?
I mean, like, yeah, I was saying about introducing a new finalizer, which can either be placed on the application set or on applications, and that is so. I guess another background context would be when we reviewed the proposal last, we kind of decided that the deletion order can be specified with the help of finalizers. So we wait for one application to be deleted, and then the controlling of the order can be with the use of finalizers. And yeah, so I don't really understand when you say a finalizer pointing to the application set, but I was just considering to ask if you have any preference on where the finalizers should be to control the deletion order.
It's hard to picture in my head without seeing an example, but because you're saying introduce a new finalizer. So normally, like when you create an application with an application set, that application, if it has finalizer set, would have a finalizer pointing to Argo CD. So it says like finalizer
resources,
colon, whatever. And here you're saying that to control the deletion, we need to have the finalizer set. Do we need to have the finalizer set to control the deletion?
So if we don't set a finalizer, then I think we are completely at the mercy of however the Kubernetes API behaves when you attempt to delete. So unlike with applications and child resources and applications, there's a direct owner reference set from the application set to the applications, which means that when you delete the application set, Kubernetes has certain behaviors around how it cascades that deletion. I don't know the details. I do know there's foreground versus background deletion. My understanding of background deletion is Kubernetes says, okay, I know you want to delete this top level resource, and that means I'm going to delete the child resources. But we're just going to delete everything all at once, and whatever gets actually deleted first gets deleted first. If you do foreground deletion, you're saying, okay, I'm going to delete the top level resource and then let it handle the deletion of the child resources. I think that's correct. Maybe I've just completely misrepresented it, but there's basically a difference in behavior there. So regardless, if we don't set a finalizer, then whatever Kubernetes does, it does, and we don't get to control order of deletion. So if we set a finalizer on the application set, the application set's not actually going to go away immediately. The application set controller is going to have the opportunity to potentially manipulate the order of deletion of the child resources. Now, if you've done certain types of deletion, maybe the Kubernetes API has already taken over and done stuff, maybe stuff that you don't want it to do, deleting child resources. So that's the background versus foreground distinction. But we definitely, at the very least, need an application set finalizer so that we don't completely just do whatever Kubernetes says. So I think absolutely need a finalizer on the application set. The question is whether we also need additional finalizers on the child resources, on the applications, in order to effectively control deletion order. And I don't know the answer to that.
That's going to depend on if you want the deletion to be covered outside of times when you're deleting the application set. So like if let's say that the application set doesn't have a finalizer and neither do the applications, when you're doing a update to the application set and it has a progressive order that it's going to do, it would work. But if you go to delete the application set without a finalizer, it can't do that progressive order like you're saying. But if you go and try to delete an application individually, it's probably unclear what the behavior is that you would want. Because if you're doing it manually, for example, you don't want it to necessarily trigger a cascade of other resource deletion because there's a different order. The only scenario is if you want to prevent somebody from manually deleting an application out of order, then you would need a finalizer on each application. But I don't know if I would care doing that. Like, I think the whole point is that you just want things to be cleaned up properly on an automated fashion. If you're doing stuff manually, then you're already doing whatever the heck you want to do manually. So now it's your problem. And if you want to clear the finalizers manually, you can do that too.
Yeah, I guess the one of the problems is like like the deletion in application set, it usually works like the generator produces a list of applications, right? And in the next run, it will produce a different list of applications, basically. And the delta between those two, they need to be removed, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's correct understanding. I'm not sure like how the application set controller does that right now. But I guess at that point in time, we have to control which applications will be deleted in which order, right? It should be that way. So I agree with what Michael said. We definitely need to finalize on the application set. So if the application set gets the application set resource gets deleted, then basically every child will be deleted too at some point in time, right? And that's what we want to control too. The other case is when there is a difference in the generator output. Like right now it produces 10 applications and in the next run it will produce only 5, right? How do we delete those 5 applications? I think it's 2 different things that need to be tackled down. 2 different scenarios in deletion.
Yeah, and I don't think either of those actually require a finalizer on the applications.
Yeah, probably not. I would agree. Probably not.
Yeah. All right, Kanika, is that helpful? Did
Yeah.
you get what you wanted out of that discussion?
Yeah, I do.
Okay,
So thank you.
okay, thank you. Blake, I think had to drop, but he brought up, it seems Docker Hub works differently from other OCI implementations. Too long didn't read. Logging in with a full repo URL doesn't work with Docker Hub, whereas with other implementations it does. This means that logging into Helm OCI registry should use the registry host rather than the repo URL. This is a familiar issue that we looked at and discussed a bit. It's so weird that Docker Hub is maybe that's not part of the OCI spec, but it's just weird that they're special, that you have to pass a specific path for it, like that.
I want to say Docker Hub was special, like always, right? For some kind of reason, they've always been.
They were special first.
Kind of special.
They were special first, yeah. Yeah, so I guess I'm not sure if Blake had a specific question about should we solve this with documentation, or is this something that we have to solve with code? And my thought about it was just that you solve it with documentation, that you specify, hey, Docker Hub is special and they're weird and you have to do it this way. Because people can put in those, but I don't know enough. I don't know if we in the interface encourage people to do it wrong. We wouldn't want to do that. Okay, I don't know what the action item would be here. There is a draft fix from Blake. Needs to use the registry host in the full repository that's issues now. So I think maybe Blake is looking for feedback on this pull request that is trying to enforce a default behavior to specify it correctly, but it's still in draft. So if you have a moment to review and want to give feedback on that, please do so. Otherwise, maybe he'll bring it up next time. Let's see, this is an issue Reggie had and asked me to raise because she's not here. She wanted to, oh, never mind. Go ahead, Reggie.
Yeah, hi everyone.
I'm like, I'm looking right at her. What are you doing?
You just set me up and told me to bring it up, even though you knew you'd be here.
No, I didn't know.
Just to make me look so foolish. Go
I'm
ahead,
sorry.
Reggie.
I can disconnect.
No, go ahead.
So my question is related to a bunch of vulnerabilities that are reported by different scanners, vulnerabilities in Argo CD. And so there are some vulnerabilities that are actually related, and then we actually fix them. But then there are plenty of others that are not really related to Argo CD, which I believe they are reported in our repo, or maybe at the SIG security, and then somehow we say that it's not related. So actually what I'm looking for is for some kind of a guideline, or I don't know if we have some kind of a document on how can we actually distinguish by things, how can we actually distinguish those like false reported vulnerabilities from the real ones. And the reason that I'm asking this is because we have a fork of Argo CD, and we have a bunch of those requests coming in, and probably some of them are not even relevant. So if I had a way to kind of explain that some of them are not relevant, probably would make my life easier.
Yeah, that is a good question. I think it needs some context knowledge, right, about what Argo CD does, what it uses under the hood, and what is actually reported. So, like my concern with all these scanners is that they, like scanner A, B, and C, they will all report different things. Weirdly enough, so some do report kernel issues, right, in a container image. That's but I think to get rid of that problem for good would be like a good start would be to actually to migrate to different base images, right? I think like
Yeah.
that's what we've discussed in the past. Because in the base images themselves, there's so many packages that I don't know, probably nobody ever needs that are not relevant at all to Argo CD. That even if there is a CV reported, like I don't know, would never be used to exploit anything that's related to Argo CD, but it's still reported, and people get like very nervous about that, and I understand that, right? I mean, all these organizations that have their quality gates in place and their security gates and all that kind of things. And I think we use Ubuntu, which is Debian based, and I don't know, like some of those medium and low severity CVs, they never get fixed in the upstream, right? Like a lot of them will just stay. Was worse in Debian actually than it is in Ubuntu. But yeah, I think the way to get rid of that is to just go with a different, more specific purpose built base image. And I guess we should just do that at some point in time.
Yeah,
Because right now it's sorry, go ahead.
I remember you were actually planning to work on it, and then I think that Christian that Acuity said that they were thinking about donating it. So, did you guys decide if you're gonna donate Distroless or not? Did Christian drop?
Yeah, he dropped.
Maybe after hearing this question.
He was like, "Wait, what are they talking about? I'm out of here." I'll follow up with him and ask him about it, because I know they had done the work on it. But I guess what I'm hearing, Reggie, is there isn't a. It doesn't sound like there's actually like a clear guideline.
Yeah.
It's like stuff that's in the Argo code base, but the other things that are just in the image that are not, kind of like stuff that's just in the Ubuntu image is less likely to be something that gets bagged. And half the time those things get patched just on the next build anyway, because we do an apt update or an apt upgrade when we build the image.
If they get fixed in the upstream.
Yeah, if they're
right?
fixed in the upstream.
So sometimes they just aren't. Like,
But we basically don't fix upstream vulnerabilities in Ubuntu.
I think we actually pin the Ubuntu image SHA, and I'm not sure that either Dependabot or Renovate is good at picking up that update, so we might actually not get those fixes.
but yeah, but we do run, like Dan said, right? We do run like an apt upgrade
Oh, sure.
before we build the images, so that should pull in like the new package versions. But I think like some of them they just won't get fixed if they are like minor severity things.
I actually even have an example. For example, if you take GitLFS.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there is
What is GitLFS? Yeah, it's installed as a package. and it currently has a vulnerability on it, is what you're saying?
Yeah.
It shows up in scanners. But
Yeah.
this Git LFS version hasn't been patched. Or because if it's been patched, then the next time the Docker file runs, it'll just include the
Right.
patch. But if Git
and
LFS
you
isn't patched,
you can always check that at the latest image, right? The one that's built off the main branch for every commit. That should, like we get a new image multiple times a day, basically, that we can calculate the delta if we can see if something has been fixed or not.
Yeah, I guess so.
But yeah,
Just like one example, yeah.
all right. Well, I'm not sure if you got what you wanted out of that, Reggie. We have a note about security scanners. Okay, now we've got Michael, you wanted to bring up removing Git pod?
Yep. As far as I know, the Git pod config that we have in the repo right now has been broken for a long, long time. Maybe it works in some way, but probably not very well. We've got a couple alternative options available to users. We've got the contributor quick start, which relies on Procfile and Gorman, which works decently well. And we've got ongoing effort to make tilt file potentially the one tool to rule them all. With all that being considered, I think it's probably time to just remove the Git pod config or somehow commit to better maintaining it.
Seem to recall Git pod isn't that old. It was introduced. Oh, okay, it is old.
it was 2021. There you go.
It's pretty old. Okay. Yeah, let's get rid of it.
Yeah, I'm all in favor for that too. It isn't actively maintained, right? So I think Alex contributed it back in the day, and it seems he doesn't use it himself anymore. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, the fact that we're even in our documentation, we're pushing people into it. I think that's reason
It's
enough
like
to close it.
Leo had come up with, I think it was Leo, right? Who had come up with that process for introducing these development tools. I can bet there is a paragraph about what happens to non-maintained things, and I guess it would say it's up for removal, right?
Yeah.
I'm not sure about the dev tools. I know there's a work in progress to introduce Tilt as one of the dev tools is driven by Cody in the call. Not sure if it's related to this or not. Not familiar. I don't remember what GitHub does exactly.
Yeah, I think Gitpod makes it easy to spin up a dev environment, which Tilt does tool too. Yeah, the fact that we've got potentially Tilt file coming on as a first class dev tool makes me more comfortable removing this.
Who's pushing tilt file?
Nitish and Cody primarily.
Yeah. But is that something that you expect you're gonna adopt, Michael, or Intuit will?
Yep, I've been using it regularly. My hope is, I don't know when the next maintainers meeting is, but my hope is at the next maintainer meeting, we get enough maintainers on board to say, okay, we're actually going to use this in our day-to-day development and keep it up to date, etc. I've liked it a lot. It's currently on Cody's branch, and I miss it when I'm not on Cody's branch. So yeah, I think it's looking really good.
So we might actually consider deprecating the Gorman local toolchain version.
Yep, exactly, and consolidating entirely on Tilt.
I like Gorman local toolchain myself. That's the one I use, and it's pretty fast. I haven't given Tilt a try yet, I want to do that, but yeah,
And the
I'm
good
not
news
convinced
is
it's faster than Gorman.
the good news is we can stack them, Leo.
Mhm.
Have tilts build on top of the proc file targets. My hope is folks will like tilt enough that we can remove the middle layer and simplify things, but there's no need to remove Gorman from the stack immediately.
Okay. Cool.
Nice. Sounds like we have pretty good support for removing Gitpod in the meantime. All right. Well, we're pretty much out of time anyway, so I think we'll just close there and give everybody 5 minutes back. Thanks everybody for a great session. Stay synced. Have a wonderful week. You know, maybe look at an application you haven't looked at a little while. You know, see how it's doing. Check in.
Thanks, Dan.
Okay, see ya.
Well,
Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Thank you, Dan.
Bye-bye.
Bye.